true. There comes a point where it doesn't matter what people believe; it's what they are.
Yeah, well, but what's happened this time round? Whereas, I mean, people now can't sort of see the sort of revolutionary content of Elvis Presley's early stuff, which was pure revolution. I mean, that was rock and roll, and it was a real strong message. I don't think rock and roll has ever been as sanitised as it is now. They've really got it sewn up, you know, like the threats are even sanitised, you know, the sort of ZZ Top or the, well, I don't know if that's the right name, is it the right name?
Probably not, actually. Maybe Sputnik.
That's right, yeah, Zig Sputnik, and then those Nazi people we saw at the, or pseudo-Nazi people we saw at the Throbbing Gristle thing, and...
Oh, that lot, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's right, something like that.
Yeah,
and there are all these sort of people sort of playing danger, and it's not danger because it's totally fucking sanitised. They're not questioning themselves, they're putting on the sort of uniform of danger. Even when Bowie used to go out in this sort of like, I mean, he was a threat, you know, there's the sort of, the sexual ambiguity was threatening, it threatened me anyway. I thought, fuck, you know, where do I stand sexually in that? He was really questioning. Now it's just, you know, it's a piece of theatre, it's pantomime, and there isn't anyone...
But doesn't that mean that it's had its effect?
Yes,
if it has,
yeah.
Now is a piece of pantomime,
yeah.
and if
not
kids
demeaning
can see
that,
through
yeah.
it now, doesn't that mean that it did have its effect?
Yes, I'm not demeaning what was happening then. What I'm saying is that there's no equivalent now. I don't think there's a sort of there's no questions being asked now. You know, I'm not that versed with what is actually happening. I mean, if there's a sort of rippling going on, then I always make it my job to hear what the ripple's about. There's nothing threatening. There's no real question. It isn't rock and roll. You know, and Bowie was rock and roll.
Yeah, but that's all reflective. I mean, it always has been, hasn't it? I mean, it's like, you know, it's
They say that the independent movement should not try and evolve and should not try and get bigger and should not be looking to try and hold on to a band like the Smiths. That if a band like the Smiths starts achieving their kind of popularity, then they really are the province of the major label, and the independent network is for something different. But there are others who are saying, well, no, in order to survive, the independent movement must use larger names and hold on to bands who come up through them.
But then
there's a lot of that going on.
But then that's a sort of, yeah, but that's a sort of cynical approach, because the interests there are self-interests, aren't they? I mean, I remember we actually went to Rough Trade as a distributor just after Stiff Little Fingers had left them. They felt terribly disillusioned at the time. You know, they'd lost their big name, and they didn't rub their hands together when we came along. They were really pleased that, you know, they thought there was a band of commitment, you know, come along. And that's how it used to be. And, you know, we did stick with them through, you know, and as a lot of adverse criticism started coming through about what was going on there, etc., you know, we still stuck with them and the cartel, because we still believed in the principles that we'd first, you know, felt were expressed when we first went to Rough Trade, their little back room, and sort of sat around with a coffee machine, you know. And, I mean, and even when one turned up at Rough Trade and couldn't get to see any of the people who ran Rough Trade because they were behind glass doors talking to important people, you know, one still said, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously they were busy today, and they're busy tomorrow, and they're busy the next day, and they're busy for the next fucking month. But you still keep going because it's, you know, when you find that, you know, the WEA tie-ups, and I mean, that is disillusioning. I mean, I was saying earlier, you know, we're not disillusioned. I mean, I'm very disillusioned with what happened in that context, because I believe we could have done it. You know, together we could have done it. None of us could do it on our own. We could have done it together. I was disillusioned when Stiff Little Fingers buggered off. I don't like the Smiths' music, but I was disillusioned when they buggered off. You know, I was disillusioned when, who were the, you know, socialist band, the Redskins, did it. I mean, what the fuck's going on? You know, we can all rationalise that way. We can all say, oh yes, we get to a bigger market. You know, we can all fucking do that. And that, I do feel terribly disillusioned by that, because every time I want to believe in things, just as much as people want to believe in us, I want to fucking believe in people. And every time you think, well, I don't quite agree with what they're saying, but I I trust them. You know, I felt that with the Redskins. I thought, Christ, well, I'm not a socialist, and I'm certainly not an SWP member, but okay, they're doing it. I mean, I remember going and seeing The Clash really early on, and I felt so hurt. I mean, it's naive, you know. You think when you sort of got beyond 20 that you stop getting hurt by things like that, you know. When John Lennon got his hair cut, I felt hurt. Well, I was sort of quite young then. You know, when The Clash sort of sold out, I was really, really hurt, you know, and the trouble is, so were they, you know, and the same with the Pistols. I wanted to believe in them, because if you can believe in, I mean, almost, and this is a dreadful thing to say, but maybe if you can believe in people, it takes some of the responsibility off you believing them. You know, if they'd been honest, then we wouldn't have to have been double honest. We wouldn't have to knacker ourselves trying to make up. You know, most of our time we were trying to prove to people, you know, that we weren't going to do it to them. Everyone's been waiting for years for us to sell out. You know, the slightest little opportunity. We didn't even used to go on fucking holidays. We didn't give ourselves a holiday in 8 years because we were worried someone might fucking see us getting on the boat. And I'm being serious. You know, we didn't take holidays because if the kid up in Glasgow who wrote to us couldn't have a holiday, then we fucking weren't having a holiday.
But the thing
And
is,
it
what's happened since, you know, people are grasping after any little thing to say we sold out. And, you know, when we brought out that double album of the old singles, the number of phone calls that told us we'd sold out because we'd done it in colour, you know, and that the price was up, you know, and all that really indignant phone calls, you know. And it was like, it was very difficult not to be angry and rude on the phone, really. I mean, what do you want, blood or something? Christ almighty, you know?
And very difficult not, you know, and when you're, I mean, it's not as if our record label is 20,000 quid down. We're fucking 20,000 quid down as a result of what we're doing, you know, so it's not, you know, we're sitting here with, you know, the bread on the table and whatever we can afford to eat, but basically speaking, I mean, no one's going to get nasty with us about it, but we are 20,000 quid down, or we were last time we looked into the books. And that's a sort of, that's a lot of money, you know, so when we sort of say, well, okay, we can't afford to put this record out for sort of 2 and 6pence, which is what we've done with a lot of our records, you know, we're going to have to ask a sort of vaguely sensible, there's this outrage, you know, how dare you letting us, we'll probably get some sent back sawn in half like we have with some of our other things, you know, because they don't conform to other people's idea of how we ought to be behaving.
I mean, we've had complaints about the compilation because it was in the colour cover. And it's that, I mean, it's that serious. If you know, if we dare to put colour on, then we definitely sold out some magical way.
And they broke their cover trying to open.
But again, isn't this then the problem of? I mean, you are caught in other people's expectations.
Well, if you, that's why one has to stop. One could see that, and you could see the drift you were being pulled towards. But you know, you do choose to stop and consider and reconsider, not because you don't care. On the contrary, you know, you do care.
Strange that the compilation of our singles, which we started out, the reason we did it was we had all these singles on the shelves we had to keep carting around. We thought, right, we'll put them all on 1 or 2 records, get them out of the way, no longer have to muck about with these things which are 8 years old.
We couldn't afford them anyway to repress all the time.
And people who've heard it, they're not hearing like, you know, one at a time. They're hearing a whole sort of, and even ourselves, listening to the whole range of things, right? You get some sense of the picture and on the sort of slightly chaotic nature of what was going on. You do get a sort of a retrospective of, you know, what we've actually been up to, and something else emerges through it. Not that, you know, if you listen to the whole compilation, you can see that we're not exploiting. You can see we're not ripping off. You know, if you've got the stuff. I haven't had any of those complaining phone calls.
And I suppose the other thing, I mean, cynically, you would be the exception if you didn't sell out, because
we know that, but we can't. It's not in one's nature to do so.
I mean, that's the catch. Is why people sit there waiting for you to sell out, because they know that soon. I mean, they are simply convinced that sooner or later they will, and almost they want that to be.
But I told you so. Told you.
Yeah, exactly. It gets to that point.
Well, it takes everyone off the hook as well.